Start. Okay, shall I start?
Yes, sir.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my webinar on Meghraj, Government of India Cloud. This webinar is about the attempt of the Indian government to integrate cloud computing technologies to realize its one of the biggest dreams called Digital India. So in this session, I'll be talking about what is this Meghraj GI is all about, why Indian government is considering cloud as a solution or a support to realize its Digital India dream, what is the size and scope of Digital India, and how Digital India is going to change everything. So it's actually a marriage of two things. One, the power of cloud computing and the dream of Indian government to connect every citizen on the digital platform. So let me start. So in this presentation, let me start with a vision. That means what India would like to achieve by implementing Digital India project and what are its objectives. And also we will establish a rationale. That means why is that we are building this GI cloud or Government of India cloud, and what are the key drivers, what are the factors which are actually compelling us to do this, and what are the potential benefits that we expect from this. And finally, every project comes with associated risks. We also look at the different risks that we have to enlist and answer and address before we get into the cloud computing platform to support our Digital India. And finally, the policy statements which are made by the Indian government in order to initiate and adopt cloud computing as a supporting mechanism to Digital India. We all know that there is one reality that nobody can escape today in India, that is Digital India initiative. No matter where you are, actually Digital India is going to affect you. So Digital India is an Indian dream where actually the landscape will change in every 100 times by 2019. The whole idea of Digital India is to connect every citizen to the government and its services through a digital platform. So this is called G2C, that means government to citizen. And you look at this, when any organization want to build its computing services to reach its customers, when they are even in thousands or lakhs, it is a big mammoth exercise. But when the Indian government, with a population of about 1 billion people, a little more than that, would like to touch and reach everybody through a digital platform, that is a very mammoth task. So huge investments are needed to realize this. We know that even to establish a single college, we need lakhs of rupees of IT infrastructure. Now just imagine a country would like to invest in IT infrastructure to establish a platform so that it can get connected to every citizen. So the traditional approach of building, buying and establishing IT infrastructure will not work. Now we have realized throughout the world, both business and institutions, that cloud is a way to go ahead because cloud gives you certain features like scalability and all. And again, another challenge that we are facing today in any infrastructure, whether it's a college or a government institution, the utilization of whatever the IT investment that we make is very less. That means if you have 1,000 computers or 100 computers in a college, if you look at entire year, probably about 20 to 30% of the time that we use all the machines. So all this combined, that means Digital India dream, the scale of the project that an Indian government is undertaking, and the traditional wisdom that we have got that traditional systems are not used, actually make cloud computing an essential partner in our dream. So in order to realize this, the Indian government has come out with a vision. The vision is to accelerate delivery of e-services provided by the government and to optimize ICT spending of the government. See, now all services which are given in a traditional thing is called services, whereas if they are given on a digital platform, they are called e-services. Today we know that railway ticket booking is done on an online platform. Cooking gas delivery is done on online system. These are all government services, and they have already input lot of infrastructure into this. For example, even you can track your speed post. So now all this investment they want to accelerate. That means they want to reach the scale that India is demanding. So in order to support this dream, that means delivering the e-services on the platform in a much faster way and to optimize the existing resources, we are going to build a Government of India cloud. And the nature of this cloud is Government of is actually G2C. That means it's a model where government is connected to citizen through its services. More than 1 billion people are participating in that. And you know today about 92 crore people already got the Aadhaar card, and there is a proposal within the government to make Aadhaar an essential identity of every citizen. Okay, sizing of infrastructure is always a challenge. That means how much IT do I need to establish this project is something which is beyond the imagination of many people. Not possible to predict the number of citizens using the service. Although India is a billion big country, we don't know how many people will actually eventually use this service. All these uncertainties make this building a big challenge. So what people have thought, now that cloud has solved many problems in business and enterprises, why not we use cloud computing in this context? Anybody is associated with cloud computing and building an infrastructure, whether a lab or an IT setup for an organization, knows that there's a classical challenge of oversize and underutilization. So whenever you want to build an IT infrastructure, we always buy in large quantities and finally realize that we don't use all the resources. And there is a kind of intuitive understanding in each one of us that bigger is better, more is better, and all those things. For example, suppose we build a house, we will have to have an AC appropriately. On the right side, you see that if you put a 9-tonner AC to a small house, you are actually serving no purposes. An air conditioner that is too large will cycle and off frequently because it may not have the required power supply and other things. So what it means is, one of the lessons that we have learned in our practices, whenever we plan, we actually plan for a large expectation and finally realize that we never had that kind of a requirement and we wasted a last resources in terms of either buying them. And IT is no exception. Whether it's a lab, whether it's a government organization, we realize this. So there was no solution for this problem of oversizing and underutilization until cloud computing came. But in the cloud computing allows you what is known as on-demand services. That means as and when you need, it will be given. So this feature will be used for building digital infrastructure. So now that I've told you the basics of cloud computing and the challenge on the hand, then we will look at the reasons why Indian government is going for cloud computing as a means to achieve its digital India dream. One of the reason is power of cloud computing. So cloud computing is established throughout the world, whether it's Microsoft or Amazon Web Services or Google, that cloud computing is going to offer a lot many advantages for an organization if you are building a global organization which is available on demand 24/7 wherever a user wants. So this power is now entering government also. World throughout countries and governments throughout the world have started using that. Second reason I told you, see, governments in the Western countries like United States and in European countries, also the governments such as Singapore and even Bangla and all, they have started using lot many cloud computing resources. India seems to have inspired by this. That means if some companies or some countries have benefited by using cloud computing to serve their citizens very well, why not us? So that is the second reason. One reason is cloud computing is a good candidate for this. Second one, leading countries are using it. Third one is we want to realize the benefits of cloud computing for India. So the GI Cloud is the Government of India's cloud computing environment that used agencies at the center and states. So it's a pan-India project. It's not that only central government is doing, and which will be used by center and state. In other words, it will enable government to leverage cloud computing for effective delivery of e-services. So there are 3 points you should remember here. Government has decided to use a digital platform to deliver the services, and cloud computing is the means to achieve that. And both state and the national government will be going hand in hand in this project. So now that about cloud computing and Indian government decision, the question next comes is, what would I want to achieve during this? That means by implementing Digital India using cloud computing technology. Government of India objective in adopting a cloud computing strategy as follows. First one is optimize utilization of infrastructure. What it actually means is Indian government, even before cloud computing came, has invested a lot of money and in terms of building infrastructure, because it has built infrastructure for Indian Railways, it has built infrastructure for CMC and all our projects. Now, first thing that we have to do is we want to remove all the redundancies in this and optimize that. And second is speeding up the development and deployment e-government application. So once we have decided that we should serve our citizens through e-services or digital services, we have to speed up. That means you have to develop a lot many applications. Easy application of successful application across the states. See now, because digital applications can be replicated easily, it is possible that, see, for example, suppose Karnataka government has developed a very good application for conducting entrance tests at +2 level for engineering. That service can be used by another state which has just started offering these services. and availability of certified application following common standards at one place. Today, standardization is a means. For example, whether it's an education institution like engineering institution, it has to undergo this NBA and all accreditation. So similarly, if it's a pollution control authority, then they have to undergo certain kind of a regulatory compliances. Now, suppose there are certified applications available on the cloud, people can upload their data and get certified whether they meet the requirements or not. So these are the broad objectives of what we intend to achieve using government cloud. Now that I have told you the objective, let us discuss about the focus. That means where are we focusing in this particular project? The focus of this initiative is to evolve a strategy and implement various components, including governance and mechanism to ensure proliferation of cloud computing in government. So the focus is that now we know that cloud is good. Now we have to have a framework to ensure that every activity of the government is done using a cloud power. Formulation of cloud policy is one of the primary steps that will facilitate large-scale adoption of cloud by government. See, just a wish will not help. Government has to take certain steps. For example, see, although the Aadhaar card is there in existence for quite some time, it is not a mandatory or a legal document. Say, for example, somebody can refuse to show an Aadhaar card when asked for. This is because as a policy, there is no mention in either in constitution or policy that it can be made mandatory. So now we are working towards that. The government is working, and eventually Aadhaar will become an essential and a legally demandable instrument. Similarly, once that kind of a thing also is going to happen for cloud computing. So if there is an activity, a solution is required, and cloud must be the first choice. Towards this, the Indian government has taken many steps. Let me talk about that. In order to drive this initiative, a task force has been constituted by Department of Electronics and Information Technology, and the additional secretaries working on this. And let me tell you one more thing. So this initiative is little old in the sense that all these projects started in 2013 and 14. Now we are in the middle of this project. While the government initiative will focus on setting, the whole idea is also leveraging the existing infrastructure. This I have been repeating because we already invested many things. For example, we have a company called SWAN, SWAN. That means State-Wide Area Network, like a LAN equivalent of a lab. And we also we have actually as NKN, that is National Knowledge Network. And we also AirNet and all those things. All this infrastructure will be harnessed as a part of this cloud computing initiative. What are the results of these efforts? The government actually has come up with one paper called Cloud Strategic Direction. That means this will give the strategic direction of the cloud effort. And it also has come out with a cloud adoption and implementation roadmap. Now that we have decided how the central government should go along with us, how the state government should go this, how the union territory should go this, that is also has been indicated here. And what does this whole project consist of? This will consist of a national level that will act as a common repository for cloud-based infrastructure resources and application available on the shareable basis. That means we will come out with a system in which we have a centralized resources. In cloud computing, centralized would mean that accessible to anybody. So these resources are available for anybody, everybody, anywhere in the world. So for example, Karnataka government has a service called Mobile One, which is so good that actually it offers about 4,500 services, starting from your land record management to electricity payment. In a recently concluded event in the Europe, it actually won an award against a stiff competition from many of the European countries. And in fact, central government and the federal government of Modi has actually asked the state government to offer some advices on how this can be scaled up to the national level. So that is the whole idea of this service. And one more thing that is very important is we are living in one of the most exciting times in the world. See, for example, historically we lost many initiatives. For example, Industrial Revolution did not happen in India because we were ruled by somebody else at that time. Electronic Revolution did not happen because our policies were not good enough. But now in the cloud computing, like in IT services or IT technology, we are leading. And this is the opinion given by one of the person who was visiting India recently. What he said is, India has led the world by example when it comes to cloud computing and technology. India had the first national cloud. It is also the first country to have a minister for cloud computing. According to the efforts taken, India is the second to none in this space. We also see industry and startups taking up platform and creating various business models around that. India is leading the space with various inventions. So historically, this is the first time that we are in tune with technology. We are not chasing other countries. We are actually closing. We have already closed that gap and taking some steps. So this comes as a great, surprise and also a blessing for us, because we are participating in a revolution which is going to change the way India would exist or operate its services. So, is there any question at this point of time?
No, sir.
Hello, Sridhar. Let me continue.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So now, so far, actually, I've established a reason that why you should be go for cloud computing as a supporting mechanism for digital India, and what is the scope and size of digital India. And I also told you the reasons why we are following the cloud way. Now we look at the key drivers and potential benefits. That means what is actually motivating us to go for this. The first reason is again a repetition: optimum utilization of existing infrastructure. We have invested a lot in IT infrastructure like NICs, that is National Informatics Centers and all. That is to be optimized. For example, I told you SWAN is there, NKN is there. SWAN is statewide area networks, and NKN is national knowledge network. And we want to take most of the investment that we have made. And suppose we make this progress very effectively, the Indian government is going to save up to 90% of the cost with the success of Meghraj. So whatever that money that we have invested in infrastructure, if we can integrate using what is known as virtualization technology, which is part of cloud computing, we are going to save 90% of the investment that we have made. The second one is rapid deployment and reusability. Today we have about 30 plus states in India and about 8 or 10 union territories. Now every state is actually duplicating the effort. So that is not necessary if the cloud computing is implemented. One state develops an application successfully, and that can be replicated elsewhere. So rapid deployment, and if there is a patch is to be done or a correction is to be done, for example, if there's a change in income tax policy or if there's a change in any other policy, that changes can be deployed very fast using what is known as deployment policies. For example, the government is going to establish what is known as e-governance app store. So every activity, whether it's a tax reimbursement or the travel allowance, all this would be developed as an application. Anybody, any government employee or any institution can use this. This would be something like what we have Google Play, where actually you see many applications which are meant for users. Similarly, Apple Store. So the government is going to establish a center where all the developed application on a cloud platform will be available for citizens as well as for the state governments. The second reason why, the benefit is actually the GI cloud will provide a single directory of services. Like we have an Apple Store where actually you find all the services which are developed are available for the user. The Indian government, as a result of this cloud computing initiative, the Meghraj, will develop application, publish a directory so that people can look at the directory and use the services which are available. For example, it's like a telephone directory. You see the yellow pages at the end of a telephone directory. So as and when you want a pharmacist, then you go to a pharmacist column and get that person. Or if you want a plumber, similarly, it is possible that they have developed many applications available which a user can take anytime. Scalability is a big issue in India. See, normally the applications in cloud computing are taken and considered from the scalability factor. That means, can it be used by 1,000 people? Can it be used by 10,000 people? And scalability is an essential quality of cloud computing. So it has something called multi-tenant technology, which allows to run an application on a single server, which can be met by many people. So this comes as a great advantage for Indians, because say for example, now we have an application like, and if you can move to cloud computing, if it becomes scalable, then probably the problem that we have in booking that call ticket, that kind of a thing don't happen. For example, railway ticket booking, online examination, if more and more people start attending the examination, still the scalability feature of cloud computing help you a lot. Excuse me. The efficient service and delivery and agility. That means agility is the speed at which you serve a customer, and efficient also, because cloud computing happens on a digital platform. There is no kind of a wastage of physical items and all. That will also be taken care by this cloud computing effort. One of the deep thing that stops people when actually offered a service in cloud computing is security. That means data in the cloud computing is stored elsewhere in data center. How do I actually ensure that my data is secure? So this complexity is also taken care. This will help bring out the essential interoperability. That means there is a communication between state and the federal government, state government and the neighboring state, and all those things will be taken care because security is also ensured in this. One of the another ways actually running a business is a very costly and a very expensive proposition because of the duplication, because of the rapid deployment, because of the optimization, cost will be reduced very high. You have to buy a software that you have to install on our machine, and if your college or institution has 100 machines, then you have to install those machines on each one of those machines of the software. But in a cloud, the approach is totally different. Once it is available on the website of a service provider, it can be supplied or it can be updated across. See, this comes very handy for an Indian government, which has thousands of offices and millions of employees. So ease of first time IT deployment. If a new application is developed, it can be installed simultaneously or almost simultaneously to everybody. And reduced effort in managing technology. See, one of the problem in a traditional computing is that you have to decide which computer to buy, how many in numbers, and you have to install and you have to upgrade. So there is what is known as the total cost of ownership is too much in terms of the technical expertise of running an existing or maintaining a machine. So that is actually avoided in cloud computing because cloud computing service providers will take care of this. All that an end user is expected to do is to just use to meet his requirement. That is exactly what happens in cloud computing, and that is what the Indian government would like to take advantage of. That means reduced efforts in managing technology. And increased user mobility. We all know that many of our documents are not available. Your card, or if you are not carrying your identity card, then if you are moving out of a station, then you will end up with many situations where you have to show a document you are not carrying. But not with the cloud computing thing. Actually, the user documents can be stored and the transaction can be made accessible from anywhere. For example, it becomes something like ATM. No matter where you move, as long as you're carrying your card, you can withdraw money. Similarly, birth certificate, Aadhaar card, marks cards, they can be accessed from anywhere, so that so that actually the physical document carrying is avoided. Finally, the standardization. Standardization is a big challenge. If you look at the documents given by different states, for example, if one person from Maharashtra is coming to Karnataka and enter engineering course, then you know his SSLC, I mean 10th and 12th marks card will be in Marathi language, which is to be deciphered by a local person here, which poses a normal challenge. Now that there is a standardization available, every state would follow for every document kind of a standardization, which makes very simple. For example, we already have this in case of like driver's license and all. So I have completed what are the key drivers, what are the reasons for which starting from optimization to standardization is covered. But while we are actually trying to sell you the dream of cloud computing, everything in cloud computing is not very clear and it is not solved. So there are potential risks which are included. That also you have to tell, because it's our responsibility to tell you, make you aware, and then make you agree to this and go further. The one of the first thing is actually cloud standards. Cloud computing is a universal technology and it has many players. There is Microsoft, there is Google, there is Amazon. So there is a problem of standardization. Each company will actually follow different standards, and that poses a challenge, because when you are applying cloud computing at a national level and there are many departments, many states, and if you don't have a unified standard, then portability becomes a big challenge. Security and privacy. Now this is again a challenge, because there is a lot of confidential information. Like, see, when you talk about government, then the military information is also there. There's a tax information is also there. And how do you actually take care of this is a big challenge. And that is the second risk. The third one is application design. We have been designing, in fact, the government has been designing many applications since the 1970s and 80s when computers started coming. And that has a traditional application like waterfall model kind of a thing. So cloud is a totally different paradigm where actually it follows a different cycle. Now there has to be a change in the mindset. You are not designing an application for a Linux platform or a desktop, or you are not developing it for a Windows platform and a mobile device. You are designing an application which can be accessed by a user from anywhere in the world on any device. So that kind of a mindset has to happen, and that is also a risk that how fast the employees or the programmers are developed working within the government can take over in charge of this and become proficient. Integration with legacy environment. So this is also a challenge. This is also a challenge in business also, but it is more in government because every department has its own computer systems. For example, versus irrigation department or a agriculture department. Now, suppose you are decided to move to cloud computing, how do I integrate? That's also a big challenge. Today, I mean, in traditional computing, software is bought and license is given to each user. For example, if you are using Microsoft Word and if 90 people are using it, you are buying a 90% license. But in cloud computing, that model is totally different. It's a subscription model. So now, whatever the existing licenses, how to renew it to be compatible with cloud computing is also be taken care. And another big problem is location of data. See, in a traditional computing, the government organization will have a computer server in their own office, and they will store all the data there. But now, in the cloud computing platform, you have what concept called data center, and this can be located anywhere. For example, the Karnataka state government data can be stored somewhere in Lakshadweep, or the data of Tamil Nadu can be stored in Rajasthan. So now this is also needs a psychological barrier to overcome. Will people will be made comfortable with the idea of storing data elsewhere, and accessibility, all restrictions they are happy with. And another equally and serious problem is vendor lock-in. See, today what happens actually, cloud computing has many offerings from Google to Amazon and all. But once the operations start and once you start storing the data, how easily that you can get the data from that system to another system is always a challenge. For example, some you have been using Oracle, and for whatever the reason, the government decides that from tomorrow we will use an open source database system. Then how easily that you can move your data existing in today's Oracle to the open source data is actually is portability, and portability is there provided there is no vendor lock-in. If the vendor doesn't insist that, see, you can use data in this format only in our organization, in our product, and it cannot be moved out, that poses a big challenge. The same consequences, portability. Loss of control. Loss of control may lead to resistance to change. For example, today income tax department hold all its data and their service. Now, in an integrated manner, it could be going out of their department or even out of their office. Now, how will they manage with this, and how will they actually get, I mean, in tune to this one is also important. Users may also span instances unnecessarily because the resource is coming from a free central resource. Then there's a chance of people using the instances freely and unnecessarily. That also causes a lot of problem. For example, in cloud computing, subscription model. That means the moment you create an instance, your meter will start. So now, how do you avoid people that they don't create unnecessarily and waste the resources which is given centrally? Thirdly, I mean, next, funding model. That means so far every state, every department used to have its own IT budget. For example, a deputy commissioner office in, say, in my place will have an IT budget to buy their machines and all. Now it's a nationalized scheme. So how do you go on actually having a funding scheme, a budget scheme, and how do you distribute that? Means how much each government, each state, each department has to pay or cost towards building this unified model. Finally, the performance and conformance. What is actually now that there are challenges in IT delivery system. For example, anybody who has tried to book a ticket on Tatkal knows that how fast and how difficult it is there to buy a ticket on Indian Railway during that period. The reason is actually servers are pounded with many requests during those small gaps of periods, and Indian Railways is actually struggling. So this kind of a struggle should not happen in a digital platform like Digital India. So because we don't know how people will use. Suppose assume that all 1 billion people want to use a service at a particular time, will it withstand that kind of a thing? So in that case, whether the performance is given, this is also a kind of a concern that we are looking at. And the most important, that too from the educational perspective, is the skill requirement. We have developers who can develop a traditional application on, say, Windows or Linux. But do you have people or students or engineers who can develop application on a cloud platform? So that is needed. So we also need the skills. I mean, we have to produce engineers who can develop a cloud application from now onwards, and we also retrain the people who are already developing application on a different context, I mean platform. So that's also a big challenge. And finally, the change of mindset. So traditionally, for 50, 60 years, we have been used for owning the machine, developing another application, running those applications, making those changes. In the cloud computing platform, that simply goes away. Somebody will develop an application, somebody will give you a resource, somebody will store your data. All that you have to do is to get your jobs done. So now you need a change of mindset. That is also a big challenge because it's more of a psychological thing. So any question at this point of time, Sridhar?
No, sir.
Sridhar?
No questions,
I'll
sir.
go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. So okay. So now, see, anything in India or anything in government should be gone through a policy, and now there is a policy established by the Indian government regarding this. Let me consider that. The government departments at the center and states first evaluate the option of using GI Cloud for implementation of all new projects funded by the government. Now it has become mandatory. So if there's a new IT project either in state or government, then you have to check whether GI Cloud can be used in that place, or can you take some support of that. For example, if AICT is implementing a new IT project for maintaining the projects, I mean data of its Constitution College, if they need any infrastructure, first they have to check whether it is already supported by GI. And there is also a policy principle. For example, all the resources will be created centrally, and the government will give these services as infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. And all applications that you are developing from now on should be cloud ready. See, the architectural vision of the GI cloud is actually, it's a discrete cloud computing environment. That means it will have state clouds, it will have national clouds, it will have intermingling of these clouds. So as you see that GI will invest to consist of multiple national and state clouds. So that means there will be a vertical cloud which will take care of all the central government departments. There will be independent clouds for each state, and there will be what is known as community cloud of joining these two together. And this will become the managed service providers. Means the central government, state government will actually build and manage those services for the other people to use. So these cloud computing environment will utilize the existing network infrastructure such as SWAN, that is state-wide wide area networks, national knowledge network, national optical fiber network integration as well. So that means this is an investment that Indian government has already done, and now we are optimizing it. These national clouds and state clouds are the responsibility of the state, but they would be building on the basis, I mean, prepared by the central government. And we will have what is known as national data centers, where actually with effectively data centers which store the data of both central and state governments. And we will have what is known as Government of India Cloud Service Directory, which is like a telephone directory, where there will be a list of services available. For example, if you want to buy some infrastructure, then there will be a policy available, pricing available, funding available, and also the way a state can use that can be accessed. For example, it could be infrastructure, it could be scaling of the state clouds. And allow government departments or agency to accelerate e-governance progress. That means now we are on the path of getting digital, so anything and everything should be e-governed. That means every service should be delivered on a digital platform. So the architectural vision of Indian government recognizes this. Components of the GI cloud. So there are different, for example, there are for cloud computing platforms. We know that in platforms we have like Google, we have that Amazon. Similarly, the platforms are given by the government cloud. Common platform to host run-end application like e-government app store like a Google Play, GI services directory which will allow you all the services which are available, integrated infrastructure acting as a backbone for delivering cloud services. For example, if there is a service which connects central government with a state cloud, then that kind of integration is also available. Institutional mechanism will consist of empowered committees. That means now you know that how to use cloud computing in state government, how to use in the income tax department. This is decided by these committees. And the operations will be taken care by the respective governments of both state national cloud and national cloud. GI cloud operations, they will include something like national information utilities, which will be, for example, NSDL is the one which actually gives you demat cards. The cloud utilities also provide support services to help departments in migration and adoption. So suppose some departments have not started IT infrastructure, then they will be starting anew. Whereas if they already have a legacy system, then migration is also supported. Policy mandate, this is a little of a abstract level where actually the central government will be talking about how to implement and how the mandate. For example, now suppose the Indian government decide that they should go for cloud, but one of the states says that we will go with the existing infrastructure or a traditional system. Then how do you give them mandate? How do you make them compel? This is a combination of both incentive and sanctions. That means they will also give you money to build a new infrastructure, but if you don't comply with that, then they will also put a sanction, because certain facilities of central government may not be available for a state unless it builds a state cloud which is compliance with the national cloud. What are the services to be offered? There are traditionally in cloud computing, there are three services. Infrastructure as a service, that means cloud computing, GI cloud will provide the infrastructural elements. It also gives platform as a service. That means if a state government or an NGO want to develop an application, it also gives you a platform as a service. Software as a service, I told you, every service of the government, whether it's e-ticketing or sending speed post, is available as a service on a store established by the government. And for a complex application, if, for example, if there is a application like visa processing and all, basic application is given, but rest is allowed to be developed by the user, whether it's a state government and also. And one of the great opportunity that is happening today in India is actually there is a lot of data available with the government. For example, there is a census data, there is a Aadhaar card data, and what Indian government is also planning to give data as a service. For example, you can ask for the census data or election data for whatever the analysis purpose. As a researcher, you may access this data to make some kind of a hypothesis testing and all. This is again a policy statement. Cloud security is also taken care in this policy, because states may be not willing to participate in this because of the security concerns, but that has been taken care by the policy matter. Adoption approach, so there will be a three-phased approach, because see, now this is a complete coverage from the traditional computing in a silos to that one. So what is done is actually there will be a three-phase approach. One is strategy, policy and guidelines. So this is already established. Implementation, and phase 3 is monitoring, management and ongoing. Now the first phase is almost practically over at the national level, but state governments have been chasing, trying to catch up with this. Monitoring management is already on, so we are in a part of a big initiative where we want to put everything in India, both citizen services and the government data on the digital platform. We are almost on the right path right now. So the conclusions are that Digital India is a great Indian dream to put every Indian on a seamless digital platform. Cloud computing is the technological foundation for the same. It opens up a lot of research and academic opportunities for each one of us. So here I conclude my presentation. Any questions, Sridhar, I can answer.
Can a private institute use GI cloud services for its purpose?
What is that?
Can a private institute use GI cloud services for its purpose?
Yes, sir. There is a provision within that. Actually, I told you, when the infrastructure is built by GI, that is available for private institutions also. But there are terms and conditions that would apply. That means there is some compliance resource that you have to do. For example, already, for example, CDAC has a scientific cloud, so that can be used by private institution provided they meet certain criteria.
We'll give the audience 1 or 2 minutes, sir.
Okay, sir. So shall we close?
Just 1 minute, we'll see, sir.
Yes, sir.
As a cloud researcher, we are facing an issue to set up cloud environment. Can you give some tools?
Okay, see, if you see, for example, there are 3 or 4 approaches in this. See, suppose you are starting from the scratch, then starting from infrastructure, you can buy from service provider like Google platform or Amazon Web Services. So that's the first thing. Suppose you are an institution like ours, which is about 30 years old, and we already have infrastructure, then you can identify your physical resources like machines and servers. Then you can use the virtualization technologies to unify them services and start using. For example, there are virtualization techniques like integrating the existing resources by adding virtualization layer on that. That's the second one. Third one is actually, suppose you have a very disparate things like, then you have to obsolete them and you go for a new setup where actually you can buy everything, only access devices are yours, and you can access from the cloud itself. For example, there are many colleges which ask students to buy on the laptops, and they have a digital centers which are established on the cloud. So they give a user ID and access number, and privileges, they will start using that. So they don't develop any infrastructure inside the institution. So these are the 3 ways we can do. And there is something idea called private cloud. Private cloud is nothing but actually on your existing infrastructure, you develop an virtualization layer and make it accessible to the people that you would like to access them.
Can we use cloud computing for academic purpose, like for assessment or sharing any academic data or related to academics?
Yes, sir. Actually, probably, I mean, if the person question is actually a regular visitor, I mean, the viewer of this webinars, in the earlier presentations, I have told you that how an academician can actually use cloud computing, starting from developing course materials to accessing, I mean, allowing access students to the different resources like presentations or assignments and all. But now we also know that there are institutional requirement like compliance with NBA and all, which needs to be, I mean, the data store to be stored and made to be analysis. Now there are many services available like Inpod and all, which gives you a cloud-based solution to this. That means you can enter your academic data from starting from your attendance to your evaluation marks to your schemes, your I mean, PLO, COs and all. So that solution is also available. Yes.
That's all the questions, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So anybody who is interested to contact in this, actually you can use the email, the website that I have given at the bottom. That is dastikov.blogspot.in. You can always contact me on these issues. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.